Okay.
Morning, sir.
Okay, we will skip first the first one, no? And then we'll proceed with kinetics of particles. Okay, so let us recall the Newton's second law. We have force is the product of the mass and acceleration. Okay, so we have here equation number one. So we all know that force is always in terms of newtons sa SI, no? And then pound force in English units. So it says here that newtons, which is a unit of force, is derived from base units of kilograms mass. Okay, so from the base units of mass multiplied by acceleration, meters per second squared. So 1 Newton is equivalent to 1 kilogram meters per second squared. Okay. Now, on the other hand, sa US customary units, the units of mass in slugs, and derived from the units of pound force divided by the acceleration. Feet per second squared. Okay. So the units of mass, no? Slugs is equal to pound second squared per foot. And this system is known as gravitational system. Since mass is derived from force as determined from gravitational attraction. Okay, so we are going to use gravitational acceleration as, okay, up to 2 decimal place lang, no? 9.81 meters per second squared. Okay. Okay, in English units or US customary units, 32.2 feet per second square. Okay, so you have to familiarize those constants. Okay, the force and the mass units. Okay, mass in kilograms. Okay, so if we have mass of 1 kilogram, so the equivalent weight for that is 9.81 newtons if we are going to accelerate it at 9.81 meters per second square.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Okay, the force and the mass units. Okay, so 1 kilogram mass accelerated by gravity, that would give us a force in terms of weight. Okay, if that acceleration corresponds to a downward acceleration. Okay, so that will give us 9.81 newtons. Okay, in English units or US customary units, for a mass of 1 pound mass, okay, that is 1 over 32.2 slug. The weight is 1 pound force. Okay. And the resulting gravitational acceleration is 32.2 feet per second square. So for a mass of one slug, that is equivalent to 32.2 pound mass. The weight is 32.2 pound force. And the acceleration is 32.2 feet per second square. Okay. So mass is in terms of kilograms, weight is in terms of newtons, wherein weight is equal to mass times gravity. Okay. Force. So dapat subscript na F to be used na. It should be subscript, and the mass in slugs or pound force second per feet. Okay. Is given by mass is equal to weight divided by gravity. So it should be pound for second squared per foot, no? Hindi yan pound for second lang. Okay? Okay, the equations of motions and solutions of problems. So when a particle of mass m is subjected to the action of the concurrent forces, F1, F2, F3, whose vector sum is summation of F, okay, the equation becomes summation of forces is equal to mass times acceleration. So the equation of motion gives the instantaneous value of the acceleration corresponding to the instantaneous values of the forces which are acting. Okay. Okay, constrained. Okay, the two types of dynamic problems. So maybe we can skip that. Constrained and unconstrained motion. Okay, so there are two physically distinct types of motion. Okay, as described by or both described by equation number 2, itong summation of F is equal to ma. The first is unconstrained motion, where the particle is free of mechanical guides and follows a path determined by its initial motion and by the forces which are applied to it from external sources. An airplane or rocket in flight and an electron moving in a charged field are examples of unconstrained motion. Okay? So airplane or rocket in flight and then electron moving in a charged field. Now the second type is constrained motion, where the path of the particle is partially or totally determined by restraining guides. Okay? An ice hockey puck is partially constrained to move in a horizontal plane by the surface of the ice. A train moving along its track and a collar sliding along a fixed shaft are examples of more fully constrained motion. Okay? So may mga restraining guides. Okay? Now, some of the forces acting on a particle during constrained motion may be applied from outside sources, and others may be the reactions on the particle from the constraining guides. Now, all forces, both applied and reactive, which act on the particle must be accounted for in applying the equation. Summation of F is equal to ma. Okay. Okay, the choice of an appropriate coordinate system is frequently indicated by the number and geometry of the constraints. If a particle is free to move in a space, as is the center of mass of the airplane or rocket in free flight, the particle is said to have 3 degrees of freedom. Since 3 independent coordinates are required to specify the position of the particle at any instant, all 3 of the scalar components of the equation of motion would have to be integrated to obtain the space coordinates as a function of time. If a particle is constrained to move along a surface, as is the hockey puck or a marble sliding on the curved surface of a bowl, only 2 coordinates are needed to specify its position. And in this case, it is said to have 2 degrees of freedom. If a particle is constrained to move along a fixed linear path, as is the collar sliding along a fixed shaft, its position may be specified by the coordinate measured along the shaft. In this case, the particle would have only 1 degree of freedom. Okay, free body diagram. So you know that already. It's just the FBD usually shows the object. Okay, and then the forces are also represented by arrows. Okay. The X and Y axis are also there. No? So that is free body diagram or FBD. Showing the forces, magnitude, direction. Okay. So when applying any of the force mass acceleration or FMA equations of motion, you must account correctly for all forces acting on the particle. Okay, the only forces which we may neglect are those whose magnitudes are negligible. Okay, so sometimes, na-mention na yan sa problem, na negligible, so meaning to say we do not consider them. Okay, compared with other forces acting, such as the forces of mutual attraction between 2 particles, compared with their attraction to a celestial body such as the Earth. Now, the vector summation of F, okay, ito, means that the vector sum of all forces acting on the particle in question. Okay? Likewise, the corresponding scalar force summation in any of the component directions means the sum of the components of all forces acting on the particle in that particular direction. Okay, rectilinear motion. So if we choose the x direction, for example, as the direction of the rectilinear motion of a particle of mass m, the acceleration in the y and z directions will be 0. Okay? And the scalar components of equation 2 become summation of fx, f sub x is equal to ma sub x. Whereas the summation of all the forces along the vertical and along the z-axis are both equal to 0. Okay? Kapag chinus natin yung x direction. Okay? Now, for cases which we are not free to choose a coordinate direction along the motion, we would have in the general case all three component equations. No? So if we are not free to choose a coordinate, then we consider the three. No? Summation of f sub x is equal to max, summation of fy is equal to may, and summation of fz is equal to ma sub c. Okay, where the acceleration and resultant force are given by, okay, a sub x times I plus ay times j plus az times k. And the acceleration is the square root of the summation of squares of the coefficients of ijk. So these are unit vectors, yung ijk. No? And summation of forces is equal to the square root of summation of squares of summation of fx, fy, and fc squared. Okay, so actually, basically, these are the same equations that we have been using before, no? Way back in physics. Okay? Kumbaga, nadadagdagan lang ng isang axis, and that is the z-axis. Okay? Okay, let's have an example to better appreciate and understand the kinetics of particles, force, mass, and acceleration. Okay, suppose we have a 75 kilogram man, no, stands on a spring scale in an elevator. So that is the mass, no, 75 kilogram. So the mass of the man. Now, during the first 3 seconds of motion from rest, okay, the tension T in the hoisting cable is 8,300 newtons or 8.3 kilonewton. Okay? So that is the tension in the cable, no, of the elevator. Now, find the reading R of the scale in newtons during this interval and the upward velocity V of the elevator at the end of the 3 seconds. The total mass of the elevator, man, and scale is 750 kilograms. Okay? So ito na yung total mass, no? Ito yung mass ng man, mass ng elevator, and mass of the scale. Okay? So write all the given. Okay, so those are the given. Okay, so if you are going to get the mass of the elevator and the scale, you just subtract 75 from 750. Di ba? Kasi kasama na dyan yung man. Okay? So required the reading R of the scale in newtons. Okay, draw the free body diagram. So before you start the solution, so meron tayong given, required. Okay. Free body diagram, or that is the drawing or illustration. Okay, and then the solution. Okay, so this red upward arrow represents the tension in the cable. Okay, so the tension is always a pull. Okay, so that is upward, 8,300 newtons. Okay, and the elevator is going upward. So it is accelerating. So A sub y. Okay. So the direction is upward because it says here, find the reading during this interval and the upward velocity. So that is a clue, no? That the elevator is moving upward, okay? Because of the upward velocity. Okay, so the acceleration is there. Okay. Okay, the weight, no? So weight of the man, weight of the elevator. Okay. And ito yung weight ng tatlo, no? Okay. So merong reaction. Okay. So the force registered by the scale and the velocity, okay, both depend on the acceleration of the elevator, which is constant, no, during the interval for which the forces are constant. So from the free body diagram of the elevator, scale, and man taken together, the acceleration is found to be, okay, summation of Fy, because we have here a vertical motion, no? So we consider the y-axis. Okay, so summation of Fy is equal to ma sub y. Okay, so yung 750, that is the total mass, no? Nung elevator, nung man, tsaka nung scale. Okay, so if we convert that to force of weight, we multiply that by 9.81. Okay, so that is equivalent to 7.36 kilonewtons. So if summation of forces, the net, okay, net force. So meaning to say, upward force is taken to be positive and downward forces are taken to be negative. Now, since tension is an upward force, so tension yung positive, and yung weight nung tatlo, no, yung elevator, man, and the scale, okay, are downward because of the pull of gravity. Okay? So, the net force, yun yung magre-represent ng summation of Fy. Okay? So, 8.3 minus 7.36. And that must be equated to mass times acceleration along the y. Okay? So, we have 750 times Ay. So, one equation, one unknown in Ay, we can solve for Ay. Okay? So, the acceleration along the vertical is 1.257 meters per second squared. Okay? But that's not yet, or that doesn't answer the requirement. No? So let's go back to the requirement. The reading are of the scale in newtons. Okay, so my clue, yung reading in newtons, kaso acceleration to. Okay, so we are very sure that that is not yet the answer. No? Now, the scale reads the downward force, di ba? Exerted on it by the man's feet. Okay? So, yun yung nire-read, no? Ng scale. It reads the downward force exerted on it by the man's feet. Okay? So, the equal and opposite reaction are to this action is shown here. No? Ito. Okay? So, that is an action-reaction. No? So, the equal and opposite reaction are to this action is shown on the right figure. Okay? So that is free body diagram of the man alone together with his weight. Okay, kasi 75 kilograms siya, di ba? So if you want to know his weight as a force, so we multiply that by 9.81, so we have 736 newtons. Okay? So the equation of motion for him, no? Summation of Fy is equal to MAY. So that is R minus 736. Okay? Is equal to, okay, M times AY. Okay? So that the reading is 830 newtons. Okay? So that is the reading, no? And that is the answer. Okay? So dito, kinonsider na lang siya. Okay? Kasi if you try to analyze the problem, the man is standing on a spring scale. Okay? And then the requirement is find the reading and the upward velocity V. Okay? So, yung reading, ito na siya. Okay? That is 830 newtons. Now, the velocity, that is another requirement. So, pakilagay na lang dito sa required na short ng isa pang requirement, no? So, there should be two requirements. Reading R of the scale and the upward velocity of the elevator at the end of the recess. So, another requirement here, there should be two, no? The upward velocity of the elevator. Okay, so for that velocity reached at the end of the 3 seconds, so we have here, no? Okay, so we have the change in velocity is equal to the integral of A dt. Okay, so this is differential in velocity. Di ba yung acceleration is derivative of velocity with respect to time, okay? So if we are going to represent delta V as dV, parehas din yun, no? So dV is equal to A dt. From the equation A is equal to dV over dt. Okay? So if we are now going to integrate both sides, so that is integral of dV is equal to the integral of A dt. Okay? So that is V from 0 to V. So from rest, kaya 0 yung initial niya, no? So V minus 0 is equal to the integral of 1.257 dt. Okay? So dito na ginamit yung acceleration, itong na-compute dito, yung AY. Okay? So that is dito, no? So we now have V is equal to, so from 0 to 3, no? 1.25 T from 0 to 3. Okay? So 1.25 times 257 times 3. That will give us 3.77 meters per second. Okay? Okay? Any question? Dito sa elevator problem? Okay? So, the first one, okay? Itong lahat, kinonsider lahat ng mass, okay? Mass ng man, elevator, tsaka scale. Okay? So when considering the totality of the free body diagram, okay, we need that in order to get the acceleration AY. Okay? And then the other one is yung pagkuha ng reading. Okay, kasi dito is the reading of the scale. So yung reading ng scale, take note na ang nakatayo lang sa scale yung tao. Okay? So we consider only the man. We do not consider anymore the elevator. Okay? So if you take a look at the problem, if you analyze carefully, find the reading of the scale. Okay? So natural, magre-read tayo kung merong nakalagay sa scale, di ba? Halimbawa, may nilagay tayong certain weight. We want to know the reading. Eh sino yung nasa scale na nandun? Yung tao, di ba? From the first sentence, a 75 kilogram man stands on a spring scale. Okay? So, yung reading ng scale pertains to the man. Okay? So that's why it was shown here on a separate FBD that it's only the man standing on the scale. No? So kapag may weight yung man, then the scale should exert an upward but equal force opposite in direction to the weight of the man. Okay? So may action, which is the weight of the man, and then magre-react yung scale. Upward. Okay? So, from there, makukuha na yung reading on the scale. Okay? Because of the equation, summation of forces along y is equal to m ay. Okay? Now, why did we use the same acceleration? Iisa lang naman kasi yung acceleration. Whether you separate the man, okay, because the man and the scale are inside the elevator, and together with the elevator, they are all accelerating at the same value. Okay? So, yung 1.257 can be used here, no? Dito sa acceleration along the y. Iisa lang naman yung acceleration. Okay? Because the man and the scale are inside the elevator. And together with the elevator, they are all accelerating at the same value. Okay? Okay, let's have another example. A small inspection car with a mass of 200 kilograms runs along the fixed overhead cable. Okay? So merong inspection car. Okay? Small. So 200 kilos lang to. No? Runs along the fixed overhead cable and is controlled by the attached cable at A. Okay? So may control. May control dun sa car. Okay? And through the attached cable at point A. No? Now, determine the acceleration of the car when the control cable is horizontal and under a tension T equal to 2.4 kilonewtons. Also, find the total force, P, exerted by the supporting cable, okay, on the wheels. Okay? So it is an upward reaction, no, to the wheels, no, by the cable. So write all the given. So mass of the car, 200 kilos. The tension T, the red one, red arrow, going to the right. Okay, so that it has a magnitude of 2.4 kilonewtons. Okay? So required is total force P. Okay? So take note, mayroong slope indicated, no? The slope of the cable. Okay? Okay. So the slope is 5/12. Okay? The tension is purely horizontal as stated in the problem. Okay? So ganun yung situation. What you see on the figure is what is on the real situation. No? So medyo naka-incline yung cable. No? Okay. Okay, take a look at the representation of forces. Okay. So, ni-reverse yung pinatayo yung cable. No? Okay. So, this time, the slope is 12/5. No? As against dito sa original, 5/12. Okay. So, that is the force P. No? So, what do you call this? Pinattern dun sa cable. Okay? So, can you see the hypotenuse? The hypotenuse is parallel to the cable. Okay? And that is where the force P, total force P. Okay? So, we have the tension. Okay? The acceleration is the direction of motion is there. Okay? And then, ito yung weight, mass times gravity. Okay? So, that is yes, this came from 200 kilogram mass of the car, no? Times gravity, so 200 times 9.81, so will give us 1,962 newtons. Tension, 2.4, purely horizontal. Okay, so we have here the slope, and we have here the force, okay? Exerted by the supporting cable. So, the force must be perpendicular to the cable. Okay? Kasi kailangan may force yung cable, no? So it should be perpendicular to the cable. So ito yon. Okay? The weight is always directed vertically down. Itong red arrow, mg. The tension purely horizontal towards right. And itong P, yun, that is perpendicular to the cable. Okay? Ito yung cable kasi, itong x-axis. Okay? So the direction of motion is represented by the acceleration to the right. Okay? Upward to the right. So the free body diagram of the car and wheels taken together, okay, and treated as a particle, this closes the 2.4 kilonewton tension. Okay? The weight and the force P. No? Ayan. So, the car is in equilibrium in the y direction since there is no acceleration. No? So summation of all forces along y is 0. Kasi the car is moving only horizontally. No? So we have P minus 2.4 times 5 over 13. Okay. Kasi summation of ano tayo, no? Okay. So dito, summation of Fy is 0. So we have P minus 2.4 times 5 over 13. Okay, so ito, kinuha natin yung Y component, no? Ng tension. Minus, okay, this one, times 12 over 13. So we have P is 2.73 kilonewtons. Okay. So did you get the value of P? Okay. So summation of Fy is 0. Okay. So kinuha yung mga Y component. Okay. So we have here ito, no? Ito yung kinuha, yung Y component nito. So if this is the angle, then opposite niya. Okay, so that is sine. So ano ang sine nito? 512. O, kaya 512 dito. Okay? Ay 5 over 13, I mean, no? Kasi hypotenuse pala to, no? So sine is opposite over the hypotenuse, so 5 over 13. Okay? So P minus 2.4 times 5 over 13 dito, no? Kasi downward ito eh, no? Ito, downward. Tapos ito, upward, yung Y component. Okay, ito naman, okay, yung Y component niya, ito, dito, no? So that is adjacent. So we have cosine, no? If this is the angle and adjacent, okay, so that's why it is 12 over 13, okay? So 12 over 13. Okay. Any question dito? So minus 1.962, kinuha yung Y component nito. No? So, i-draw ninyo rito, extend this, okay? And drop this. Okay? So, pwedeng dito, or pwede rin dito. Okay? So, kung dito, we are after nito. Okay, this one. So we have 12 over 13 is equal to 0. So one equation, one unknown in P, we have the value of P is 2.73 kilonewtons. Okay. Any question dito sa figure? Now, sa x direction, ito yung x. Okay? So, summation of f sub x is equal to max. Okay? So, ano-ano yung mga nasa x? Yung 2,400, di ba? Yung x niya is cosine. Okay? Or, what's that? Not cosine, but that is 12 over 13. No? So, adjacent over the hypotenuse. Okay? yun yung summation of x. Okay? So 2,400 times 12 over 13 minus yung weight, that is 5 over 13. Okay? And then equal to 200 yung mass of the car times acceleration. Okay, so that is 7.3 meters per second squared. Okay? Naintindihan ba itong summation of Fy and summation of Fx? Did you understand yung summation ng Fy? Okay. Okay, any question dito?
Hello po, sir.
Hmm.
Ano po, sir? Bakit po, sir, over 13?
Ito yon yung hypotenuse. Okay? That is the hypotenuse. Ito. Okay?
Okay po, sir.
So 5, opposite kasi ito eh. No? Opposite. Okay? So pag kinuha mo kasi ito, yung y component, kasi we are here. No? Summation of Fy. So 2.4. Okay? And kapag ito with respect to the y, okay, kasi ito yung y natin. Okay. So kinuha yung y component, no, ng ito. Okay. So 2.4 serves as the hypotenuse. Okay. And etong 5/13, okay, is pag in-extend mo kasi itong y, tapos kunin mo yung y component nito. Okay? So dito siya. Okay? So that is 5/13. Okay.
Okay po, sir. Thank you po.
Tapos, ito naman yung weight. Okay? This is the weight. So kinuha din yung y component with respect to this. Okay? Ito with respect to this one. So yung y component niya is ito. Okay? So that is 12/13. Okay? Nakatabingi kasi. So you try to straighten up the axis. Okay? So one equation, one unknown in P, we can solve for P. Okay? You try to ikutin nyo tong x and y, no? Iikot nyo dito. Such that yung x nandito na. Tapos yung y dito. Okay? And then, magsa-summation lang kayo ng forces along the y. So yung P is upward along the y, kaya positive. Siya yung nauna. Okay? And then minus itong 2.4. Kasi pababa baga to. Pag niresolve mo to dito. Okay? Pag niresolve mo siya, so meron siyang y component, no? Na 5/13. Okay? And then ito naman is 12/13. Ito. Yung y component niya. Okay? So may right triangle ka dito. And this is 12/13. Okay? One equation, one unknown. So sa x direction, ganun din. No? Kung ano yung dito, baliktad na sila ngayon. No? So yung to the right, is now the positive x. Okay? So 2.4 times 12 over 13. Ito kasi yun, no? 12, ito yung horizontal niya, no? Over 13. Tapos, yung 1962 is 5 over 13. Okay? So 5 over 13. Okay? So resolve this into x and y component. And then equal to 200A because the mass is for the mass of the car. No? Diba 200 kilogram? O kaya 200 times acceleration. So we have A is 7.3 meters per second squared. Okay? Ito yung slope, parang ginamit siya in terms of the angle. Okay? In terms of the angle. So yung angle dito is, kunin mo lang yung arctangent ng 512. Yun yung theta dito. Okay? O read the example number 3. Read and analyze first. Okay. Did you understand yung ano? Did you understand here? Do I need to show you kung bakit 5 over 13, 12 over 13? Kailangan ko bang ipakita? Ha? Kasi parang walang imik kayo, no? Do I need to show?
Sige po, sir.
Hmm? Okay. Sandali na lang. Ginagawan ko kasi ng ano para mas maintindihan nyo to. No? Okay, I'm going to show you kasi parang hindi niya nakuha. Kung bakit naging ganito siya, no? Kung bakit ganun, no? Ganun yung treatment. Kung saan ang galing yung mga 5/13, 12/13, okay, galing yan dito. Okay, yung slope. Okay? Ang hirap kasi pag hindi talaga face to face. No? Ang hirap i-explain. Okay, look at this. No? Ayan. Nakita niyo yung tension, di ba? 2.4. Yung tension na yun is the hypotenuse. Okay? Hypotenuse. Now, yung angle that the tension makes with the x-axis, yun yung angle theta. Okay? At kung kukunin natin yung angle na yun, isosolve natin, which is arctangent ng 5/12. Okay? Arctangent ng 5/12, which is 22.16 degrees. Okay? Now, kung i-resolve natin yung tension into x and y components, so gagamitin natin yung 2.4 kilonewtons sine theta. Kasi opposite, yung y component niya is opposite the angle. So we are going to make use of the sine function. Okay? So meron kasi siyang ty tsaka tx. Yung ty, yun yung kailangan natin. Kasi yun yung component ng tension that is parallel to the vertical axis. Okay? Parallel siya with the force P. Kaya dapat lahat ng line of action ng force na naka line up kay P, yun yung isa-summation natin. Yung tension is horizontal. So we need to get its y component. Okay? Horizontal siya in the sense na nakatabingi yung axis. Pero kung i-straighten up natin yung axis, yung angle ng tension with respect to x is 22.16 degrees. That is arctangent of 5/12. Kuha ba? Now, ty lang ang kukunin natin. Hindi natin papakialaman si tx kasi we are considering summation of all the vertical forces. Okay? Now, since si P along the vertical na, hindi na siya natin kailangang i-resolve. Positive P na siya. Ngayon, itong si ty is a vertical downward component of the tension. So that's why minus, di ba? May minus 2,400 times sine of the angle, which is 5/13. Saan ang galing yung 5/13? Yung 13 is the hypotenuse of the slope. Ano yung slope? Rise of 5 and a run of 12. Okay? Now, since sine of theta is opposite over the hypotenuse, and opposite the angle is 5, yung maliit na right triangle. Hypotenuse niya is 13, kaya 5/13. Yung multiplier natin kay tension. Nakuha o hindi? Mahirap?
Nakuha po, sir.
Okay.
Okay na po sa akin, sir.
Okay na sa inyo. Okay, so similarly, ganun din sa weight. Tingnan nyo yung weight. Okay? Yung weight, i-resolve din into components. Okay? O picturean nyo na lang para pag-aralan nyo. Na? Nakuha nyo ba kung paano, how the forces, the tension and the weight, how were they resolved using the given slope? Okay? Kukunin nyo muna yung slope kukunin nyo muna yung hypotenuse ng slope. Di ba 5/12 yung given, rise over run? O naturally, the hypotenuse is 12. Di ba 5, 12, 13 magkakasama yan? Parang parehas yan ng 3, 4, 5 na right triangle. Yung 5, 12, 13 is the longest, so therefore 13 is the hypotenuse. So siya yung naka-over doon. Over 5 over hypotenuse, 12 over hypotenuse. Okay? Nakuha na? So that we can proceed. Okay? Ano kayo, try to familiarize yourselves kasi yung ibang student, mawala lang yung angle, hindi na alam kung anong gagawin. Okay? O gaya nito, hindi tayo binigyan ng angle, but we were given the slope. So in other words, we can make use of the slope in place of sine theta and cosine theta. Okay? Ngayon, hindi sa atin binigay yung angle, pero actually, we can solve for the angle. Ano yung angle? Arc tangent ng 5 over 12. O that is 22 point. Ano yon? 5 divided by 12. Arc tangent, 22.62 pala. 22.62. Okay? Mali pala yung 0.16 ko kanina. 22.62 degrees. Okay? Now, yung 22.62 degrees, yan yung angle ng tension with respect to the x. Okay? So, ibig sabihin, magmula sa x-axis, umikot ka ng clockwise hanggang sa umistop ka doon kay red na tension, 22 degrees. No? Kumbaga, if we are going to describe it, 22.62 degrees below the positive x-axis. Yun yung angle ng tension. Okay, nakuha nyo? 22.62 degrees below the positive x. Nandun yung tension. Okay? At yung complement niya, i-minus mo sa 90. That is 67.38 degrees. Yun yung angle ng tension with respect to the y. Yun yung angle niya with the vertical. Such that when you add 67.38 and 22.62, it is a right angle. Okay? Yun yung fourth quadrant. Nakuha nyo? Di ba pinakita ko na kanina? Okay. That is 67.38. Pakita ko uli sa inyo. Oh, ito, no? Nakita nyo yung okay, this one. Okay. O, ito baga. Diba? Ito, 67 plus 22. So, together, fourth quadrant, 90 degrees. Okay? Kuha nyo? Yung 22.62, nakadikit sa x-axis, below the positive x. Tapos yung complement niya, 67.38, yun yung remaining angle, okay, with the y-axis, such that if you add them, equal to 90 degrees. They complement each other. And the sum is 90 degrees, equal to the fourth quadrant. Okay? So that is the P, no? The force P, yun yung isa sa requirement. Total force exerted by the cable, no? Sa wheels. Kasi sa cable, nandun yung wheels. Okay? So para hindi mahulog yung car, dapat yung cable should exert an upward vertical force equal to 2.73 kilonewtons. Now, in the x direction, kasi papunta doon yung motion, doon natin kukunin yung acceleration, no? Kasi isa sa requirement is determine the acceleration of the car. Okay? And then find the total force P. So nakuha na natin yung P, kailangan na lang natin si acceleration. So the car is moving kung saan, syempre yung cable, nandun lang ang takbo ng car. Diba? So since upward ba yun? Hindi naman sinabi, but the tension is towards right. So most probably the acceleration is upward to the right, no? Yeah, a little bit upward because of the slope. Now, so kung acceleration ang kukunin, summation of F na naman tayo. Bakit along X? Kasi nandun yung motion. Okay? Nandun yung motion. Sa Y, wala. That's why naka-equate siya sa 0. Kasi yung MAY niya is 0 because AY is 0. Walang acceleration along the Y. Ang meron lang siya is acceleration along the X. So therefore, summation of Fx tayo is equal to M times AX. So ano-ano yung mga forces along X? Going back to the tension na naman, kunin natin yung X component nito. Okay? Ano yung X component niya? 2.4, okay, times 12 over 13. Bakit 12? Kasi 12 is the what? Adjacent, no? Siya yung adjacent along X, no? So 12 over the hypotenuse. Okay, positive because to the right. Okay? And then minus yung X component ni weight, no? So yung X component ni weight, ito yon dito. So minus, kasi kung tutusin, nasa third quadrant. Okay? So minus the component of the weight. And what is that? Over 13 na naman siya, pero 5 over 13. No? 5 over 13. Okay? So dito. Okay? So that is the X component, 5 over 13. Okay? Equal to M, M is 200 times acceleration A. We do not know. Okay? So this is one equation, one unknown. You can solve for A, and that is 7.3 meters per second squared. Okay? Okay, analyze example number 3. I'll give you time to read and then analyze. Okay? Yeah. Read and analyze. Okay, so this time we deal with English units, US customary units. So there is, on the figure, merong dalawang block, or not block, yes, block, no? A block and a lug, okay? So mayroong 400-pound lug resting on the incline, no? And concrete block A. Ayan naman, kitang-kita yung may letter A na label, no? So that is concrete block. And that block is 250 pounds released from rest. So meaning to say, zero yung initial velocity. Okay? Kasi from rest. Now that concrete block A pulls the log upward. Okay? So hinihila niya. So habang bababa yung A, tataas yung log. Okay? So the log will go up the 30-degree ramp. Okay? Kapag pinul siya ni block A, concrete block A. Now, if the coefficient of kinetic friction between the log and the ramp is 0.5, mu k, di ba yung coefficient of friction, we denote that as mu. Okay? So since kinetics siya, mu sub k. Kasi dalawa yan eh. Kinetic friction and static friction. So since we are dealing with kinetic, coefficient of kinetic, then mu k equal to 0.5. Now determine the velocity of the block as it hits the ground at point B. Okay? What is the velocity of the block upon reaching block B? So take note na yung block A still has to travel 20 feet before it reaches the ground B. Okay? Ayan, may distance baga siyang 250 feet. Okay? So write all the given information culled from the problem. Okay? And then what is required? Ano yung required? Determine the velocity as it hits the ground. No? So that's the requirement. Okay, let's have the free body diagram. Kasi ito yung figure, di ba? Yan. So from the figure, you can now label the figure in terms of arrows, forces. Okay? Ayan, no? So show all the forces acting on the log as well as all forces acting on the concrete block. Okay? Now the motions of the log and block A are clearly dependent. No? So why do we say that it is clearly dependent, yung motion nilang dalawa? Kasi nakakabit lang baga sila sa iisang cable. Di ba? So when A moves, the log also moves. Okay? So yun ang ibig sabihin ng dependency. No? Kapag gumalaw yung isa, automatic gagalaw din yung isa kasi basically they are just joined by a common cable. No? Now, although by now it should be evident that the acceleration of the log up the incline is half the downward acceleration of A. Okay? Okay, any questions so far? So, the constant total length of the cable. So, take a look at the cable. No? So, we have S sub C plus S sub A. So, let L be the total length. Okay. So, we have 2S sub C plus S sub A plus constant. Okay? So, yun yung the total length of the cable. No? Where the constant accounts for the cable portions wrapped around the pulley. Okay? So yun pala yung mga constant, no? Yung constant that would account, no, for the portions wrapped around the pulley, no? Ito yung ano niya, no? Yung nakarap, okay? Kasi yung SC and SA, ito lang yung mga straight lang, no? Straight. Eh di ba iikot sa pulley ng konti o yung portion na yun na medyo nakapulupot sa pulley hanggang sa maghiwalay na sila. No? So yun yung to account for that particular segment of the, what do you call that? The segment that is part of the circumference, di ba, ng pulley. Okay? Now, differentiating twice, so meaning to say, dalawang beses natin i-differentiate with respect to time. Okay? Kasi distance, di ba? Para makuha natin yung acceleration, we differentiate twice yung distance with respect to time. No? So that is 2a sub c plus a sub a equal to 0. Okay? So we have 2a sub c plus a sub a. Okay, we assume here that the masses of the pulleys are negligible. Oh. Ito yung sinasabi ko kanina. No? So meaning to say, we do not consider the masses of the pulleys. We neglect. Okay? So we ignore them in the computation. Yun ang ibig sabihin niya. No? So we don't need anything about the pulleys. No? And that they turn with negligible friction. Okay, so assumed to be frictionless. Kasi negligible din yung friction, no? So with these assumptions, the free body diagram of the pulley C discloses force and moment equilibrium. Okay? Thus, the tension in the cable attached to the lug is twice that applied to the block. Okay? So, the tension in the cable attached to the lug is 2 times, no, applied to the block. Okay? Because of this, no, yung sa acceleration equation, which is derived from the distance. Okay? 2s sub c plus s sub a. Okay? So the free body diagram of the lug shows the friction force mu k times n for motion up the plane. Okay? Kapag may motion up, yung frictional force is going down. Okay? So if we are now going to apply Newton's second law, we have summation of Fy again equal to 0 because what? No acceleration along the Y. Okay? So magsi-zero yung equation. No? Okay, did you get the yung summation ng Fy is equal to 0? Parang ganun din nangyari sa first. No? So we now have n minus 400 cosine 30 is equal to 0. Okay? So meron kasing normal force, yung ramp. Okay? So yung normal force niya is perpendicular to the surface of the ramp. So if you are going to sum up along the y, so yung normal force is already a positive n. No? Kaya nga may n na dito. No? N minus 400 because yung y component ng weight of the log. Okay? So 400, hindi yung 400. Okay? Yung 400 is vertically down. Okay? So 400 cosine of 30 kasi nga may angle dito, no? If you take this, tapos nandito yung weight, 30 yung angle niya with respect to the y, no? So that's why minus 400 cosine 30 is equal to 0. So in this particular case, one equation, one unknown in the normal force will give us 346 pounds. Okay? Okay? So that is sa x. Pero pagdating sa y, summation of its y component, ayun na, no? So pagdating sa x, motion in the x. So that will give us summation of fx is equal to max. Okay? Yung 0.5, okay, that is, I think, coefficient of friction. Yes, no, coefficient of friction. Pababa siya because the friction, as we all know, is always opposite the direction of the motion. So since yung motion niya is upward baga yung lag, di ba, kasi nga inihila siya, pataas ng concrete block. Okay? So kapag mababa yung block, tataas si lag. Okay? But since this is x component, di ba? So yung x, ano-anong forces along x? O kitang-kita naman dito sa free body diagram, the frictional force. Ito, no? 0.5 times n. Okay? Mu k times n. Okay? And then, so we start with the friction. Okay, so 0.5 times 346 minus 2t plus 400 sine 30 is equal to 400 divided by 32.2 times a sub c. So twice the tension. Okay. Ito yung frictional force minus 2t. Okay. Plus 400 sine 30 is equal to 400 over 32.2 a sub c. Okay. So we have for the block in positive downward direction, kasi yung positive is yung downward, no? We have 250, no? Pagdating na dun sa block in the positive downward. So we have 250 minus t is equal to 250 all over 32. So take note that we need to divide 32.2, no? Okay, kasi yung gravitational constant and acceleration is 32.2. Okay? So makikita nyo, what do you call this? Sa Fx, merong dalawang unknown, di ba? The tension and the acceleration. And then, when we consider the block in the positive downward, nagkaroon din ng dalawang unknown. Again in tension and again in acceleration. Okay? Now, solving these two equations simultaneously, or you can also have substitution if you want. No? Okay, so I leave the computation with you since tapos na kayo ng mga algebra, di ba? So, Ayan, no? I-simplify nyo na lang. And then we do not anymore solve, no, using algebra. No? So kayo na bahala, no? Kasi nakuha nyo naman na ang algebra. So apply your stock knowledge, no, in algebra. Parang x and y to, no? Na parang x plus y equals 10, x minus y equals negative 5. Parang ganun. Two equations in two unknowns. So we can solve them by substitution, by matrix, yung, what do you call that? So by substitution, by elimination if you want. Ano pa nga yung isa? Kramer's rule, yun, using determinants. No? Pero huwag nyo nang pahirapan. Kapag dalawa lang naman, you simply make use of substitution or elimination. No? So here, you can express acceleration in terms of tension or tension in terms of acceleration. Then substitute ninyo rito sa isa. Okay? Any questions so far? So if you solve these two equations into unknowns, okay, actually ang unknown dito is acceleration at A, acceleration at C, and the tension. So three unknowns. No? So we have these values. No? Acceleration at point A is 5.83 feet per second square. Okay. So you have to take note of this, no? Para okay, so ito na yung mga value, no? For the 20 feet drop with constant acceleration, the block requires, kasi ito yung 20 feet, ito yung distance, di ba, from the ground. Tingnan nyo dito, no? Ito, no, yung distance ng concrete block from the ground, which is point B yung ground. So, parang nakalutang siya ng, or suspended in air by 20 feet. Okay, so ito yung for the 20 feet drop with constant A. So we have V squared is equal to 2AX. So we have VA is equal to the square root of 2 times 5.83 times 20. So ito yung 5.83 galing na dito sa sinolve nating linear equations. Ito. Summation of Fy, summation of Fx, and block summary, no, or the summary of the three equations. Okay, so 15.27 feet per second kasi velocity lang. Okay? Any more questions dito? Analyze the solution and also refer to the diagram. No? Refer to the diagram. Okay? Always refer to the diagram, no, kapag mga ganun. So that's why it's very important that before you solve, you need first to draw the correct free body diagram. Okay? Kasi doon na kayo magde-derive kasi ng mga equations, no? Yung from what you see on the graph. Okay. So any more question dito sa ano? Sa concrete block and the lag? Okay. So basically, ang ginawa doon is in-isolate, no? In-isolate yung free body diagram ng lag, and we also isolated the free body diagram of the concrete block. Okay? And in between them, ayan, no? Okay. So in between them, yung sa pulley, no? Yung sa pulley, ito, no? So i-separate ninyo ha, ito yung lag, ito yung sa pulley. So take note, isa lang dito, no? Yung tension, pero dalawa dito. After point C. Okay, any question? Okay, let's have this. The design model for a new ship has a mass of 10 kilograms and is tested in an experimental towing tank to determine its resistance to motion through the water at various speeds. The test results are plotted on the accompanying graph, and the resistance R may be closely approximated by the dashed parabolic curve shown. Okay. If the model is released, no, when it has a speed of 2 meters per second, determine the time t required for it to reduce its speed to 1 meter per second and the corresponding travel distance x. Okay? So write all the given. Konti lang naman yung given, di ba? Mass is 10 kilos, speed 2 meter per second, reduced to 1 meter per second. So reduced to half. No? Okay, required. Time required. Okay. Okay, so this is the drawing. No? So most probably this is the illustration. So merong weight yung boat. Okay. W, and then bakit di lumulubog yung boat is that yung tubig may ino-offer na buoyant force. Okay? So, merong buoyant force which is equal to the weight. Okay. Okay? So, that is the principle, no? Kasi kung walang buoyant force to counter the effect of the weight, lulubog yung bangka, no? So lulubog siya, so that dapat merong buoyant force which is equivalent to the weight of the ship, no? Okay? So nakikita nyo dyan, may B is equal to W. So meaning to say, the buoyant force must be equal to the weight of the fluid, no? Weight of the boat, not the fluid. Pero yung buoyant force is an upward vertical reaction offered by the sea, no? Kung bakit hindi lumulubog yung sasakyan na may sinabi ba yung weight? What is the weight? Wala naman, 10 kilogram lang yung sinabi, no? Design model, no? Model lang, kaya 10 kilos. Okay? So we approximate the resistance velocity relation. R is equal to kV squared. Okay? So dito galing yung R is equal to kV squared. Okay? So from here, na-derive yung, okay? R is equal to kV squared. So substituting R equal to 8 newtons, okay? Kasi is that mentioned? Okay. So R is equal to 8 newtons and V2 meter per second into the equation. Okay. So that will give us 8 over 2 squared is equal to 2 Newton second. Okay. So the only horizontal force on the model is R. Wala namang iba, di ba? So that is R is equal to MAX. Okay? Now since R is directed opposite the direction of motion, kasi yung direction ng motion is, tingnan nyo yung green arrow. No? So yun yung mga proofs kung saan papunta yung motion. Okay? The velocity, I mean, no, of the motion. Okay? So yung green, yan yung sa taas nyo. No? Yung VO. Okay? So we can now start with horizontal force. So wala namang iba, yung R lang, di ba? But since it is opposite, so that's why it is negative R. No? M times AX. So negative 2V squared, kasi yun yung nakuhang R dito. Okay, sana ba yun? Dito, no? Okay. So negative 2V squared is equal to 10, no? Times dV over dt. Okay? Okay? So that is negative 2. So we have negative 2V squared is equal to 10 times dV over dt. So separation of variables from your differential equations. I hope you are through with that. Diba? So we separate. In other words, we group all terms containing V on one side and then group all terms containing the time on the other side. Okay? So multiplying both sides by dt, dito, no? Multiplying both sides by dt and at the same time dividing both sides by v squared so that you will end up with this, no? The integral of dt, the definite integral of dt from 0 to t is equal to negative 5. So that is negative 5 times the definite integral of dv over v squared after separating the variable, di ba? So we have s, okay? So we now have separating the variable, no? So integrating both sides, so this will give us t evaluated from 0 to t is equal to, okay, negative 5 times dv over v squared. So pwede nyo itong itaas, v to the negative 2 dv, so v to the negative 1 over negative 1. Okay? Evaluated from, okay, so one equation, one unknown, you can solve for the time. Okay? So we have v is equal to v over 2, which is equal to 1 meter per second. And the time is 5 times 1 over 1 minus 1 half times 5, no? So that will give us 2.5 seconds. Now, the distance traveled during the 2.5 seconds is obtained by integrating v is equal to dx over dt, or v dt, or solving for dx, we have dx is now equal to v dt. No? Kasi sila na yung may expressions. No? So we have this one. No? So from this, na v is equal to dx over dt, na-derive to. No? That dx is equal to v times dt. Eh since may v na, diba? Which is, ano yung v natin? This one is in-integrate ito. No? Okay? So integral ng denominator is 2 dt. Eh wala siyang 2, 10 na yung nandun. So ilabas mo yung 10, introduce ka ng 2, introduce ka ng 1 half. Okay, so 10 over 1 half. Okay, or 10 times 1 half will give us 10 over okay. So ito baga 2t dt. So lagyan mo ng 2, ilabas yung 10, then 1 half. So 10 times, okay. So pag in-integrate nyo to, so kunin nyo muna yung differential ng denominator. So what is the differential of the denominator? 2 dt. So meron tayong 10. So ilabas mo yung 10 muna, lagyan mo ng 2, then yung 10 behind times 1 half. Okay? Para mabalance yung nilagay nating 2. So 10 times 1 half will give us 5. Okay? So meron na tayong 5 times the natural log of 5 plus 2t. Okay? Evaluated from 0 to 2.5. Okay? And that will give us 3.47 meters. Okay? Okay, so yung critical dito is yung pag-approximate ng resistance velocity relation, no? This is actually taken from the graph dito to dinerive, no? Because of these points, dinerive yung constant na K, no? Ito, R over V squared. Okay? Yun yung dinerive dito, yung constant K, no? So, find K by substituting R is equal to 8 and V is 2 meter per second. Okay, ito yon. Ito yung R is equal to 8. And ano sabi dito? V is 2 meters. Ito. Okay? Kasi, yung mga points, kumuha ng eksakto. So, ito yung exact. Okay? Nasa 8 and at nasa 2 ang velocity. Okay? So that is where K was derived. Okay, dito. Okay? That R is equal to K V squared. Kasi directly proportional daw yung R to the square of the velocity. Hindi siya linear, no? Hindi siya That's why may square, no? So, para makuha yung constant of proportionality, R is directly proportional to the square of the velocity. Okay? So, K times 2 squared. So, 8 is equal to K times 2 squared. Okay? So, 8 is equal to K times 4, no? So, ang K mo is 2. Okay? 2 Newton second. So, dun dinerive. Okay? But, given naman kasi yung itong resistance versus velocity graph. Okay? Otherwise, hindi nyo talaga makukuha. Okay? But since given to, dito dinerive yung K. Okay? At yun yung ginamit sa R, where R is equal to KV squared. Okay? So, K is negative 2 times V squared. Okay? So, yung resistance is opposite the direction of motion. Nakita nyo yung motion, may green na velocity. Kita nyo to? Oh, that is where the motion is. Now, since the resistance is against, opposite the motion, kaya nagkaroon siya ng negative dito. No? So, negative R is equal to M times AX. Okay? O read through natural log ang gagamitin. No? So, 10 over 2 is 5. So, 5 na to. No? And then, read through. Okay, so hindi pa tayo tapos dito. No? So, marami pa tayong i-discuss. Okay, but let us see if we can have midterm next week. Pero parang hindi, no? Another discussion tayo, no? Siguro the following week, saka na tayo mag-midterm. Okay, so up to here muna. Okay. O, nasagot ko na ba itong question sa chat box? Bakit daw 13? Di ba 12 po ang nasa adjacent side? Adjacent nga yung 12. Eh, yung 13 baga, hypotenuse. Di ba? So, we need to solve for the hypotenuse. Di ba? Yung hypotenuse is equal to the square root of 12 squared plus 5 squared. Square root of 144 plus 25, square root of 169. No? So that is where 13 came from. Square root of 169. Okay?